Hi everyone and welcome to the result of March 2022 Goal of the Month. As well, in this video I'm going to be previewing the run into the National League North title race. Now, unlike usual with these videos, I'm going to start with the latter and get straight into talking about the run-in for the National League North title race. Now obviously you'll have both Kevin Wilkin and Mike Williamson saying just to take it one game at a time, etc. But I'm not Kevin Wilkin or Mike Williamson, so let's just get into this, starting doing it in a game-by-game process. Now, obviously, tomorrow night, which is the 5th of April, Brackley play their game in hand away to Curzon Ashton, and unfortunately, as a Gateshead fan, I can see no other outcome in that game other than a Brackley win. I mean, if there's any Curzon Ashton fans watching this, I'm very sorry for being so dismissive of your team, but it just seems to me at the minute you've really fallen off a cliff. That goalkeeper's goal that Farsley Celtic scored against them the other week has changed everything for them, really. They were right in the mix for a playoff spot until then, but then it just seems as though their season's just fizzled out. They lost 4-0 at Gateshead, 5-0 at Kidderminster, then 3-0 at home to Spennymoor. But bad runs have to end at some point, and obviously from my perspective it'd be absolutely ideal if it did tomorrow, but yeah, at the minute I'm struggling to see past anything other than a fairly comfortable Brackley win. Anyway, moving on to this coming Saturday, Brackley are at home again and York City are the visitors. I think this could be a bit of a banana skin for Brackley, but the thing is, they've made a pretty big habit of winning games 1-0, even snatching them late on. They're very resolute defensively. I mean, as for Gates on Saturday when we were there, it just seemed like we were running into brick walls half of the time. So yeah, that's going to be a tight game in my opinion, because I think York are obviously coming on quite strong now. I know they got beat in the FA Trophy semi-final at the weekend at Bromley, but by all accounts it sounded as though they still played quite well against a pretty clinical side from the league above. So you can't rule out York by any means in that game. Meanwhile, up in the northeast, Gateshead will be taking on Chester. I think obviously they need to bounce back. It's really that straightforward. I think we're at a stage now where every game is basically must win, just to basically guarantee keeping close tabs on Brackley. I mean, any favours from anyone else is just a bonus, but yeah, definitely must win for us on Saturday. But it's not going to be easy. I think Chester maybe now are in a situation of which they can't really get in the playoffs, but they're definitely not going to go down. And they've had a bit of a resurgence of late. They're in good form going into the game. Plus, as well, it's Steve Watson's coming back to the International Stadium for the first time. He'll want to come back and get a good result. But if there is any management team that know how Steve Watson works, then it's definitely ours. So it's gonna be a big game. But yeah, we definitely do need to win. I think it's probably the first time this season we've been in a must-win situation. Moving on to Good Friday now, Brackley have a trip to Leamington, which Leamington's a bit of a funny place to go. Obviously Gateshead were beaten there earlier in the season. They've had a bit of an indifferent second half to the season, it's safe to say, but I was told by a Brackley fan not so long ago that Leamington are something of a bogey team for them, so it'd be nice if that trend, well, Leamington's ground is a bogey ground for them, so it'd be nice if that trend could continue, but again, it's probably one of those where you probably do expect Brackley to go and get the 3 points by hook or by crook. As for Gateshead, it is a trip to Guiseley. Now, this will be a massive game at both ends of the National League North table, I think. Obviously, Guiseley, basically now bottom of the league, not in good form, and basically need every point they can get. Meanwhile, Obviously, I think you'll probably have outsiders looking at this game thinking, oh, Gateshead will absolutely romp it, but I personally can't see it being that way. I think it's going to be a very tough battle for us that day. I think obviously guys, they have the home crowds behind them, and obviously they'll know the importance of every game from now on. So I think if we are to win that, I think we might have to ride a bit of a storm and just grind it out, really. Anyway, moving on to Easter Monday, must add that as the fixtures have fallen, we're now in a situation that if one of the team, if Brackley are at home, Gateshead will be as well, and if Brackley are away, and so will Gateshead. On Easter Monday, Brackley are hosting Boston United, who are in the mix for the playoffs. I mean, they've been very indifferent all season. I think in pre-season everyone was expecting much more of them, but they just haven't really delivered. But they're still in with a shout. And as for Gateshead, it is a very tough game indeed against a Darlington side that now are all of a sudden in with a playoff shout. I mean, I don't think anyone thought that would be the case a month or so ago, but here we are. I think that day will probably be quite an intense atmosphere inside the International Stadium. I think Darlington will bring the biggest away following to the stadium of anyone this season by an absolute landslide. I think it's a daytime game. There's plenty of trains running and that, so I'm expecting a big turnout from them. So, but I think looking at the game, I think it wouldn't surprise me if Darlington would maybe be happy with a point. I think as a club, they're maybe not quite ready for the step up to the National League yet. But even so, even if whether they do get in the playoffs, don't get in the playoffs, do go up or don't go up, I think at the very least they'll be looking to gain some momentum going into next season. So it's important that day that we definitely stamp our authority on the game and don't let the occasion get to us too much. I mean, it's not a derby, it's not even a rivalry. Darlington fans certainly don't class us as a proper rivalry. It's just a all northeast clash that will quite likely have a pretty big crowd. Anyway, on to Saturday the 23rd. Brackley are away to Darlington, so in terms of this title race, Darlington are going to have a pretty big say, aren't they? And you've got to remember as well, Darlington are the only team that have beaten Brackley away, and they do have a bit of a reputation for upsetting the apple cart, it's safe to say. They've done a double over AFC Fylde, absolutely wiped the floor with Chorley recently, and apparently they played Southport off the park recently as well. It was only 1-0, but apparently it should have been a lot more. So that could be a very sticky day for Brackley, but at the same time it could also be a very sticky day for Gateshead as well, because we are away to Kettering Town, who may be in a similar situation to Boston I was talking about earlier, who had on the cusp of the playoffs. I don't think many people expected them to be there at the start of the season, but they're there, and you've got to give them a lot of credit for that. And Latimer Park, it's maybe, with all due respect, not the best pitch to be playing on. I think it's going to be tough for us as a footballing team to go there. And you think back to when we played them in our first league game of the season, was 3-0 up within 20 minutes or so. But in that second half, I thought they showed a lot of sort of potential, and yeah, on another day, it could have made that game a very, very nervy ending for us. But thankfully, we nullified that game at the right time. But I think this is going to be a tough one. But then again, this has been the sort of game which we've been known to win this season. You think back to games such as Spennymoor away, Hereford away, Boston away. So fingers crossed that comes off again. Then obviously the week after, Saturday the 30th of April, Brackley host Blythe Spartans, who, like Guiseley, are maybe in a situation at the minute where they need every point they can get, although Blythe do have their fate in their own hands, and you'd think they should stay up, but and again, they can't go relying on favours, because obviously either Farsley, Telford or Guiseley could pick up some points at any given moment. But you'd think that day Brackley should get the job done against them. Meanwhile, for Gateshead, it is a home game against Southport, which at that time it's probably looking likely that Southport will be in a similar situation to what they're in now, where they're right in the mix for a playoff spot. It could go either way. So I think as long as we've at least kept tabs on Brackley, I think that game could be very, very open and expansive. You think back to the game in September, it was a bit of something of a classic, really, wasn't it? The 3-3 draw. Obviously, we came from 3-1 down, snatched a point in the last minute, and you've got to say, other than for Southport's goalkeeper having an absolutely unbelievable game that day, I think that game probably would have finished like 5 or 6-3 to us. But makes no mistake about it, Southport are a very good team. So yeah, I think that's going to be a tough day for us. But it's one of those where if we play our football the right way, just get at them and that, then we'd like to think we'd be all right. There's only a 2-day gap until the next games after that, in which Brackley are away to Hereford, which I think at the minute there's probably a 50-50 chance that Hereford will go into the last 2 games in the mix for the playoffs. Now, they had a bit of a disappointing result at the weekend, but they are capable of getting results against anyone on the day. They're a very tough nut to crack, so it's maybe not the best last away game that Brackley could have had. So I think that could be a very interesting game and could provide a late twist. Meanwhile, though, Gateshead are away to Chorley, who of course beat us at the International Stadium in January. But despite that and their league position, that might not be the worst last away games have, because they could well be in a position by then of just waiting for the playoffs to start. And if that is the case, and they've basically secured, basically in a position where they know that they're going to be at home for the playoff eliminators, then they could well bring the changes. Plus, as well, if it is a must-win for us, then basically no option but to get on. Plus, since that game at the International Stadium, they have been very hit and miss. It is safe to say, when I won that game, looked as though they were right in a title race, but obviously have fallen off a bit since. So yeah, then of course going into the final day of the season, Brackley are at home to Chester, who you imagine by then will have absolutely nothing to play for. But again, you don't know what the form's going to be like at the time, and I think Chester probably are in a position now of sort of building momentum in that for next season. So the thing is, on the last day of the season, you always get weird results, don't you? So but again, you'd think Brackley should be okay that day. Meanwhile, we are at home to Hereford, who, again, 50-50 as to whether they'll have anything to play for by then, and it is a very they are a tough nut to crack. But I personally think that when we played them away, it probably was our best away performance of the season. I think in terms of what a difficult place it is to go, and I thought we played that game absolutely perfectly, to be fair. So I think regardless of whether we win, then the final whistle sparks a monumental celebration or not, I think regardless we do need to be winning that game, because sorry about that interruption. I think we do need to be winning that game now, because I think if we win the title that day or not, I think if we can win it, then it maybe carries that momentum into the playoffs, doesn't it? So yeah, whether we win the title or not, we still do have a very important role to play right up until the very end. And speaking of those playoffs, it's looking likely at the minute that whoever doesn't win the league between us and Brackley will end up playing the winner of the 5th v 6th playoff eliminator, which at the minute would be a game between Chorley and York. And I think if it is us, I think despite the fact it's no longer possible to get more points off of Chorley than what we got off York, I think at the minute I'd probably say I'd rather come up against Chorley than I would York. I think Askey really is stamping his authority down on the place at the LNER Community Stadium. I think a lot of people have been saying York and Fylde will will be strong going into the playoffs. And to be fair, it is pretty hard to disagree with that, to be honest with you. But I mean, regardless, as long as we can carry that momentum into the playoffs and that, then we've got a great chance. Regardless, I mean, we've been up there all season for a reason. So, but the thing is with the playoffs, it's no matter what's been and gone no matter what's been and gone in the regular season when the teams have faced each other, it's quite frankly all irrelevant. It's about who holds the nerve in a one-off situation. I mean, if we can't finish first, then definitely finish second, and that guarantees being at home for the semi-final, and if we make it the final as well. So yeah, there's still a lot to play for, isn't there? So we'll just have to wait and see with it. Anyway, moving on to the result for March Goal of the Month. In 4th place, you have gone for this.
Oh, what a goal!
So a fine strike there by the Billingham Symphonia player, and a really easy 8-1 win for them against what was basically a Carlisle City development team, let's be honest, in the Ernest Armstrong Memorial Cup. But well worth its place in the top 4 all the same. Anyway, in 3rd place, you have gone for this.
Oh! What a goal! The upset's on. What a hit!
So the late entry into the competition and the goal for Gisborough Town against Mask United, which helped them pull off the upset that night and make it into the North Riding Senior Cup final. And obviously, wild conditions throughout the game, but an absolutely fantastic strike. And you've got to say they maybe deserved it for the perseverance in that during that game. And in 2nd place for this month is this. So I have to say that it was probably one of the best Gateshead performances I've ever seen, and it was certainly an aesthetically pleasing goal, that one. I mean, the quick movement and the thumping strike from Macaulay Langstaff there against Kidderminster, it's absolutely brilliant stuff, wasn't it? But it was Beaton's Goal of the Month, and it was beaten by this.
Oh, what a goal!
Saw a rallying call there by Crook Town on their social media to get this strike against Seaham Red Star to win a Goal of the Month competition. It was a bit of a classic that night, to be fair, wasn't it? It was a really good game of football. I mean, obviously on the night, Crook were eventually beaten, but all the same, a really good strike into the top corner. Well worth its place in the nominees, and it has been voted as your winner. But anyway, that is that for this video. I'll be back on Wednesday night with Jarrow FC versus Bolden Community Association. So a bit of a South Tyneside derby there, but really looking forward to it. Until then, take care, and I will see you later.